Chapter 5 Building Blocks of the Universe. Now that we have some idea of where thoughts go, let's find out what they do. To continue from where the last quotation left off, Seth speaks, session 524, quote, "Now, this is highly simplified, but the subjective experience of any consciousness is automatically expressed as electromagnetic energy units. These exist, quote, beneath the range of physical matter. They are, if you prefer, incipient particles that have not yet emerged into matter. These units are natural emanations from all kinds of consciousness. They are invisible formations resulting from reactions to any kind of stimuli. They very seldom exist in isolation, but unite under certain laws. They change both their form and their pulsation. Their relative, quote, duration depends upon the original thought, emotion, stimuli, or reaction that brought them into being. Again, highly simplified here, under certain conditions these coagulate into matter. Those electromagnetic units of high enough intensity automatically activate the subordinate points of which I have spoken. They are, therefore, accelerated and propelled into matter far more quickly, in your terms, than units of lesser intensity. Molecules would appear as large as planets to these units. Atoms and molecules and planets and these electromagnetic energy units are simply different manifestations of the same principles that bring the units themselves into being. It is only your relative position, your focus within an apparent space and time, that makes this seem so unlikely. Each thought or emotion therefore exists as an electromagnetic energy unit or as a combination of these units under certain conditions. And often with the help of the coordinate points they emerge into the building blocks of physical matter. This emergence into matter occurs as a natural, quote, result, regardless of the nature of any given thought or emotion. Mental images, accompanied by strong emotions, are blueprints, therefore, upon which a corresponding physical object or condition or event will in your terms appear." End quote. From here, I would like to diverge from the workings of coordinate points to study some more about these electromagnetic energy units. This is not the first time Seth talks about electromagnetic energy units. Seth uses this analogy throughout his work and brings it out in a concept of electromagnetic energy units that he refers to as EE units. We can already see the correlation they have with thoughts and emotions, and they appear very similar. They activate coordinate points and are, quote, accelerated by them if a certain intensity is reached. But are these EE units the actual thoughts, or the form thoughts takes when they, quote, emanate from consciousness? Let's dig into some more about them to see, then come back to their associations with coordinate points. Seth speaks, session 520, quote, "Your scientists are finally learning what philosophers have known for centuries, that mind can influence matter. They still have not discovered the fact that mind creates and forms matter. Break. You are intuitively aware that you form your image, and that you are independent of it. You do not realize that you create your larger environment and physical world as you know it by propelling your thoughts and emotions into matter, a breakthrough into three-dimensional life. The inner self, therefore, individually and in mass, sends its psychic energy out, forming tentacles that coalesce into form. Each emotion and thought has its own electromagnetic reality, completely unique. It is highly equipped to combine with certain others, according to the various ranges of intensity that you may include. In a manner of speaking, three-dimensional objects are formed in somewhat the same way that an image you see on your television screen are formed, but with a large difference. And if you are not tuned into that particular frequency, you will not perceive the physical object at all. Each of you acts as transformers, unconsciously, automatically transforming highly sophisticated electromagnetic energy units into physical objects. You are in the middle of a, quote, matter-concentrated system, surrounded, so to speak, by weaker areas in which you would call, quote, pseudo-matter persists. Each thought and emotion spontaneously exists as a simple or a complex electromagnetic energy unit, unperceived, incidentally, as yet by your scientist. The intensity determines both the strength and the permanency of the physical image into which the thought or emotion will be materialized. In my own material I am explaining this in depth. Here I merely want you to understand that the world that you know is the reflection of an inner reality." End quote. Here again we have the main theme that underlines metaphysics, that the world has an inner source. Now, let us look at our subject of thoughts within this text. The first thing I will mention here is that we create with our thoughts by, quote, propelling your thoughts and emotions into matter, end quote. When Seth says, quote, you create, what, quote, you is he referring to? We can take from our lack of awareness that this is not the conscious physical ego. I know we ourselves would say we do not create matter at this level of consciousness. It's the next sentence that gives the deeper source of this creation to be more in line with, quote, the inner self. The statement about, quote, individual and en masse, end quote, are very important to consider. We alone do not create at all. In most terms we think of, quote, en masse to only refer to all of us conscious humans. But this may be an assumption on the part of the reader, by again limiting the universe to where only humans are conscious. I do not believe this is the case, and I hope you will also consider other types of consciousness. So, quote, en masse may also include these other consciousnesses' psychic energy. I will give a bit more here on what Seth has to say about these EE units. Seth speaks, session 581, quote, break. EE units are formed spontaneously from the electromagnetic reality of feelings emitted from each consciousness. As, for example, breath automatically goes out from the physical body. EE units are then emanations from consciousness. The intensities of the thought or emotion determines the characteristics of the units themselves. As certain ranges are reached, they are propelled into physical actualization. Whether or not this occurs in your terms, they will exist as small matter particles, say as latent matter or pseudomatter. End quote. There are some definite correlations between these two quotes. There is the mention of, quote, range of intensity, end quote, in both. It seems that this is the characteristic of EE units that determine the activity of these units. We also see the correlation that these EE units are, quote, spontaneously exist, end quote, or are emitted. So it appears that if there are any thoughts or emotions, there are EE units naturally emitted. It may very well be that these emissions of EE units are the auras around people that many psychics perceive. Within the study of auras, it seems that much of the information gained from them are based upon color and their interactions. We again find the word, quote, propelled into physical actualization or into matter. This depends on a certain range to be reached, and we can surmise from all that we have seen about this already that it again depends upon their intensity. It is here we may be able to formulate one of the laws/theories of metaphysics, and I will state it as, quote, the intensity of the metaphysical will have a direct effect on the form of the physical, end quote. With this theory in mind, let us look at what else is said about EE units. Seth speaks, session 581, quote, break. The behaviors of such units, as you can now see, form the particular camouflage within any given system, while the peripheral activities effectively set up inner identities and outer boundaries. There are all variations, generally speaking and very simply put, on matter as you think of it. The same applies to negative or antimatter, however, which you do not perceive in any case. But the graduations of activity within such systems are as diverse. Basically, however, no system is closed. Energy flows freely from one to another, or rather permeates each. It is only the camouflage structure that gives the impression of a closed system, and the laws of inertia does not apply. It appears to be a reality only within your own framework and because of your limited focus. Now the duration and relative stability of such, quote, matter within other systems varies considerably, with the intensity determining the strength of all such manifestations. The invisible EE units form your physical matter and represent the essential and basic units from which any physical particle appears. End quote. In this, Seth refers to the, quote, camouflage within any given system. The implications of this are that the outer appearance of the system are not the real underlying substance that form it. In Seth's own words, Seth Session 512, quote, now at times I will be using the term, quote, camouflage, end quote, referring to the physical world to which the outer ego relates. For physical form is one of the camouflages that reality adapts. The camouflage is real, and yet there is much greater reality within it, the vitality that gave it form. Your physical senses then allow you to perceive this camouflage, for they are attuned to it in a highly specialized manner. But to sense the reality within the form requires a different sort of attention, and a more delicate manipulation than the physical senses provide. End quote.